Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Time for episode 17 of Get in the Bin with me, Andrew Musgrove. And
Hi, Sam Mulliner. Hello.
you well, Sam? You good?
No, I'm awful.
You can tell. You sound like you've got a bad cold coming on.
I have been back in this country for 3 weeks now since my wonderful vacation to Portugal, and during those 3 weeks, I have now been ill twice.
Holiday blues.
I think I'm allergic to England.
Well, I've got hay fever. I mean, I'm not coming down with a big cold, but my hay fever in recent days has been off the charts.
Yeah, pollen very high at the moment. I too suffer from hay fever, but it's terrible, isn't it? But
Well, look, we're coming into a heat wave apparently in this country, just in time for me to go away to Spain, which is just my luck. But hopefully that will help get rid of your cold, even though it might bring on your hay fever a little bit more. But I'm sure all our listeners and viewers wish you a speedy recovery and back to full health. Are you enjoying the Euros?
Yes, but my illness is not Euro fever. There's been some fantastic games, some brilliant performances. My anti-post pick was the Germans, and they're tanking along quite nicely, aren't they? They're really looking impressive. Probably the most impressive out of all the teams so far, really. But again, some of the teams up to this point of recording have only played once. Spain are looking good as well, although a bit of a nip and tuck game against the Italians. Still a very good win. If I was a betting man, which I am, Euro 2028 is Spain's to lose at this point, I think. But I'm broadly enjoying it. England are obviously doing what England do. But there's nothing really new there. Just ever decreasing circles of not learning lessons.
Couldn't have put it better myself. And we'll just dive straight into my item for this week.
Okay.
Because it is England. It is Gareth Southgate. Southgate can get in the bin, quite frankly. Listeners of the podcast will know that I'm not a great fan of international football. I don't watch any international football other than the tournaments. I'm not too fussed if England win it or not. And people will say, well, why do you care about Gareth Southgate? Well, last night's performance against Denmark, the substitutions, the setup is exactly the reason why I've fallen out of love with England and international football. Gareth Southgate does not inspire me. His choices, his decisions do not inspire me. I'll give him credit where it's due. I was surprised at his squad. I was surprised he left out Rashford. I was surprised he left out Harry Maguire. That's what I would have done, but I didn't think Gareth Southgate would do it. I thought it was too much of a risk for Gareth Southgate, who likes to be comfortable and doesn't like to change too much. But he did it, and I applauded him for that. But since then, some of the decisions and the setup in this tournament have been absolutely bizarre, absolutely baffling. And I know England are top of the group and still in a very good position, and they will go through to the next stage, barring something absolutely disastrous. But you can't get away from that performance against Denmark. And as good as Denmark were, very, very underrated side, in my opinion. Got some excellent players, I think. England were just awful. I mean, towards the end of the game, it was like they'd given up. Straight passes, and then players just stopping hands on hips as play was going on. It was all over the shop. Something's not right. Selection's not right. Trent in the midfield, Foden out on the left. It's all over the shop. For whatever reason, Southgate just doesn't know how to get the best out of a very talented generation. And I think he should just get in the bin, quite frankly.
Lots to debunk there, isn't there?
It was a bit of a rant, wasn't it? I do apologise.
Plenty of that I agree with, because you can't not help think that. But he ain't the first. He won't be the last. It just seems like just a typical England thing, doesn't it? I don't think the system's right. I don't think the substitutes were wholly correct against Denmark. I mean, the Newcastle bias is obviously going to be thrown out there, but I love Eze as a player. But it was the wrong decision to put him out on the wing. I want him centrally, because he's always going to come narrow. and he did. When this England side are desperately lacking is width in the attacking areas, because all Foden wants to do is cut inside. We saw it in their last game, the Iceland game before the tournament started. Foden and Palmer were terrible playing together, awful. No positional sense between the two of them. It was more Palmer than Foden, really. Because they both kind of wanted to drift in and play the 10. For me, I don't know why we're not going to a 4-2-3-1 and playing Rice and Bellingham in the middle. I know Bellingham's been utilised as a kind of false 9 or a 10 for Real Madrid, but he's just as effective in centre midfield. There's not going to be an issue there. And then you can play Saka out on the right, Foden as the 10, and then a Gordon or a Palmer or whoever floats your boat on the left. But look, 20 years ago, even longer than that, we're a win and a draw in, and questions are being asked, and we get through the group stage anyway, and it's all hunky dory. We had England managers playing Paul Scholes wide left instead of changing a system because England play 4-4 chuff in 2. There's just a lack of tactical awareness by a lot of these managers, and I don't know. It was quite. It's been a current theme within the last couple of years of England getting an early goal and then sitting back. Instead of going for the jugular, I don't know why that is, which is concerning. I thought the players after the Denmark game handled the media really, really well. And Southgate was handling it well too, up until he said we're struggling to replace Calvin Phillips, which then all of his credibility just absolutely nosedived. Because he could have taken Calvin Phillips, but Calvin Phillips has had a woefully bad season.
Well, it's ironic, isn't it? Because that was one of the things I was cheering. When he came out and said, he's not been playing enough. I can't. He pretty much said you're going to have to move to another team on loan if you want to be in the Euros. He moved to West Ham. It was disastrous. He didn't take him, and I was like, do you know what? Really refreshing, because if I'd been a better man, I would have bet quite a lot of money on him taking Calvin Phillips, because he seems to be his favourite, and there clearly seems to be a bit of regret that he hasn't brought him to this tournament. But you couldn't have brought him because he hasn't played enough games. And coming into this episode, I had something else lined up, and then what changed my mind was watching that interview from Gareth Southgate, and I just couldn't believe my ears. I mean, initially I saw it on Twitter and thought it has to be one of them fake ones, and then I saw it for real and thought, oh no, he's actually said that.
Yeah, I had the exact same mindset throughout, and what it was as well, he's probably waking up this morning looking in the mirror, probably going, I wish I would have brought Jordan Henderson with us.
Well, there's another omission which I also applauded. But look, he has got players in that centre which he could use. Okay, they're not traditional out-and-out defensive midfielders, but you have got talented players. I mean, why isn't Adam Wharton playing from Palace? He was fantastic in the last game. I know it was his first introduction to international football, so maybe Gareth Southgate doesn't want to chuck him in at the deep end, but this is a tournament which potentially could be over by next week if something goes wrong for England. And then you're looking back and think, well, why didn't you play Wharton? Why didn't you play Anthony Gordon? Why didn't you play Cole Palmer? Players who are in real form and players who've actually performed in the games before this tournament for England as well. Because if you look back to, it was Brazil, wasn't it? And then what was the game after Brazil, which Gordon performed really well, but England didn't? Gordon's proven himself on the stage. And yes, look, this is a Newcastle United podcast, but we do this series for listeners who, aren't Newcastle United supporters and they want to, have something fresh. We try not to let that bias come in all the time in these episodes. This isn't just about Anthony Gordon. This is about Cole Palmer as well. This is about Wharton. This is about the fact that, taking Ivan Toney, despite not scoring in the last 8-9 games in the Premier League or whatever it was, leaving Dominic Solanke at home. There's so many decisions that don't affect Newcastle, which Gareth Southgate's made, which leave you scratching your head. And for me, as I go back to the point I originally made, he's the reason I don't really enjoy watching England. I always think even if England get through to the knockout stage, they're going to get put out when they face the big teams anyway because they just can't handle it. And last night was just kind of a definition, I think, of Southgate's time. And you hear pundits saying he's the most successful manager in recent England times. He's the second most successful manager of all time. But the question is, what has he won? That the fact he got to a final and a semi-final, it doesn't absolve him from the criticism and the fact that really this should be his last tournament because
it will be.
It will be, and it should be. There shouldn't be any question about it.
Yeah, and to be honest, I was saying to the Newcastle Fans TV lads on our WhatsApp group last night, I'd be amazed if a bit of contact hasn't been made by the FA towards Graham Potter already. It's no surprise that Graham Potter's, well, I say it isn't a surprise. It could be a surprise to some that maybe Graham Potter hasn't taken one of the many, many jobs that have been going around this summer already. He's waiting for the big one. I've never bought into the kind of scenario where Eddie Howe leaves Newcastle to take over England this summer. Eddie Howe will be England manager one day. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But it's just too soon for him. He's too engrossed. He's too all in on the day to day. He's not going to coach well.
It's like Rafa Benitez, isn't it? There was when he was at the top of the tree, he was always linked to other jobs. But I think he came out and said it right now. It is about the day to day, being on the training pitch day to day with the players. And club football is so different to international football that I don't think it would suit Eddie Howe probably for the next decade at the very least. I think he's a club manager. It's all right for Gareth Southgate, who's been in the job at England for a long time. It's why I can't really see Gareth Southgate leaving England and actually coming into a club job. I just don't think that suits him. Same way I don't think it'll suit Eddie Howe, at least for another decade or so. But one of the concerns is, though, that's just my opinion, and that's just your opinion. Could Eddie Howe's head be turned? If they do come knocking, there is a little bit of concern from certain Newcastle United fans that a bad tournament for Gareth Southgate will make the FA step up and go after Eddie Howe potentially. Now Newcastle are going to want a huge amount of money to get him out of his contract. They'll not want to lose him first and foremost. But it is the England job. Eddie Howe will be England manager one day. We've both said. Could it be sooner rather than later? I don't think it will be, but I can understand why some are a little bit worried by it.
No, I don't think it will be, but it wouldn't surprise me if he spoke to them and had the conversation. I don't think there's any harm in that because, like you say, it's your country a knocking. So it wouldn't surprise me if they had the conversation and they held talks. But for me, Howe stays. It just makes no sense for him to take at the moment, especially when someone like Graham Potter can just, fill that job in and just, it makes the most sense, I would have thought, unless they're going down the same route that they did last time and they give the job to Lee Carsley from the under-21s, which would be interesting. Which I say it'd be interesting. It's a very real possibility. It's a very real possibility. Look what happened last summer with the 21s winning their Euros. So that's not to be discounted in any way, shape, or form. But in terms of Eddie Howe, no, I don't think there's any danger there. There'll be a couple more England managers before Howe takes that job. I would assume. But to kind of, I suppose I have to argue against your point, really, don't I?
Only if you want to.
Well,
look, I'm not, by the way, suggesting that the FA sacked Gareth Southgate mid-tournament, as some people have been joking, to copy the Ivory Coast approach, because they won it, didn't they, after they did that, the African Cup of Nations. Look, my point being,
to put Southgate in the bin would be incredibly harsh. Think back of toxic England environments before where club allegiances often got in the way with our own golden generation. Southgate's wiped that out. He's created an environment that players want to be called up to England. Capello just kind of made it a real chore, and some players absolutely hated playing for England under Fabio Capello. Southgate's created an environment where it's brought the pride back to being called up for your country, and we had that great run to the final in the previous Euros. He's had his big moments, winning on penalties against Colombia. So he's had his moments, and he's brought a lot of joy to the nation. It's probably just a case with Southgate that he maybe should have gone after Qatar, and he's just maybe outstayed his welcome a little bit.
I agree with all the points you've made there about creating a better atmosphere and players want to now play for their country. They want to be within the camp because it's fun more than anything. But that only counts for so much. And when you are consistently making the wrong decisions, I mean, how have we got to the point where I think I'm not alone in really when it comes to praising Gareth Southgate for his squad choices. This is the first squad you've gone. He's probably made the right decision on every call. No Harry Maguire.
No,
Marcus Rashford. You don't think so? Well,
No.
not every call. I mean, more on the players, more on the old elite that he's left out, such as Maguire, Henderson, Phillips, Rashford. For me, every choice there was spot on. As I've mentioned, I think Solanke should have been in ahead of Ivan Toney. There's a few others where you go, maybe you should have taken Grealish, maybe you should have taken Maddison. But in terms of the old elite, leaving especially those 3 or 4 players out, he's got that spot on. But for me, how has it got to what tournament are we in now? Gareth Southgate number? Do you know off the top of your head?
4 or 5.
4 or 5. So, how have we got to that point? From my point of view, where I'm gone, first time I've really applauded this squad. But you think he hasn't got the decisions right with the squad?
Not all of them. I mean, Harry Maguire was only left out due to injury. That wasn't Southgate going, right, you've not been good enough this season, I'm leaving you out.
But as we saw with Luke Shaw, it's not against players who probably won't play.
That's a mistake. Luke Shaw shouldn't have been called up. So he hasn't got it all right. That is a glaring error. Tariq Mitchell, was he fit? Another Palace player. He's Chilwell, who I don't particularly rate. I don't mind him not being called up. I think there would have been more of an argument to call up Mitchell than Chilwell, to be honest. But Trippier's done all right at left back. Again, the Newcastle United bias. Would you want to see Livramento or Lewis Hall? I have to be honest, probably not for me yet. I don't know. He's not made all the right decisions, but again, this isn't a Gareth Southgate problem. This is systemic in England over the last 30 years.
But
I've been watching football.
I don't buy that because he's been in long enough now where he can pick who he wants. He can make the right decisions. He knows these players.
Every England manager can pick who they want.
No, I know that, but to say it's a problem that's gone before him.
It is.
But
Sven-Göran Eriksson picking Theo Walcott.
Yeah, but that's got nothing to do with Gareth Southgate's choices. Gareth Southgate is his own man, so I don't buy that, at all. But just to go before I let you get your point in, just to go back to the game against Denmark, you mentioned there, Eze coming on when he's played centrally for Crystal Palace. For the majority of the season, 17 games he played as attacking midfielder last season for Palace, 8 as a left winger. He missed quite a few through injury. So to bring him in on the left, and he looked really out of depth. He did not look comfortable. A couple of times he tried to beat the man. The touch was too heavy. The pass was all over the shop, and he came in at that time when everyone was kind of just hot potato on the ball. But that was a very weird decision, I thought, to bring him on. Again, I'm not saying.
Think 2 things. One, is Gordon fit? Is he carrying a knock? Or 2, does he really fancy him?
But this is it. Again, I reaffirm the point. This is not. I would love to see Gordon play. I think he's fantastic. We watch him week out. He's exciting. He's fresh. He's good with the ball. His feet. He'll take on anyone that's in front of him. He's just more naturally gifted on that flank than Eze. But had Cole Palmer come off the bench and played on the left, I would not have been against that. I just think he's the decisions he's making substitute wise, just very, very bizarre. And that one, especially, I mean, Gordon,
Conor Gallagher every time as well, isn't it?
I don't get that either. I mean, Bowen, okay, fantastic player. I would love to see him in black and white. I don't have anything against that. But just the Eze substitution was just very, very strange, especially when you've got two gifted.
Does Eze no favours either, really? Like, as I say, loved Eze. I'd have loved to for us to have signed him instead of Palace from when he was at QPR. I remember speaking to Les Ferdinand on Newcastle Fans TV, who was director of football at QPR at that time, and Eze was being touted for a move. He couldn't speak highly enough of him, and he said if Newcastle came knocking, he'd recommend Eze to go and play for Newcastle. But obviously we were under the wrong ownership then, with a manager that wouldn't have got the best out of him. I think it was just a case of right club, wrong time. But that change, like you say, it just doesn't do the player any favours. It doesn't do the system of the team any favours. We're just so narrow. Look at the heat maps or the average positions that the graphs that BBC were showing, especially after we went 1-0 up. Just so narrow. I mean, you've got some of the best wingers in world football there, and you're just getting nothing out of them whatsoever, and they're just making them play so narrow. It's just awful.
Cole Palmer and Anthony Gordon have had 65 goal contributions and 96 appearances between them and the season just gone, and neither of them have appeared off the bench in the first two games. That stat alone is just damning of Gareth Southgate, because when you need game changers, you've got two there who have been their star players for the club all season, in seasons that haven't been particularly matching of expectation for either Chelsea or Newcastle. And Eze's been brilliant. I think he scored 11 goals or what have you in 29 games. So, he's had his injury issues, and he's scored as many goals as Anthony Gordon did. But those two standout performers for each of their sides, and they haven't got a single minute. And for me, that can get in the bin, because I don't understand it at all.
Yeah. Eze would be the change where you need to take off Bellingham or someone like that. Not for one of the wingers.
Has Southgate got an issue where you look at Foden, tremendous player, instrumental in City winning yet another Premier League title, 27 goals, fantastic season, and he's just trying to put him in the team no matter what, and that doesn't work. You look at a side like Germany, if the player doesn't fit the system, doesn't matter who they are, they don't get in the side. But Gareth Southgate seems determined to play his most talented and best players, even if it's a detriment to the setup. And he's not ruthless enough. Put Foden on the bench or change the system where you do have maybe, as you've said, Bellingham a bit deeper, Foden up as a number 10. But don't just put him in on the left for putting him in sake, because what will happen is you'll either have a rubbish game, or you'll just naturally gravitate to the centre and look brilliant in the moments he has there, and then you'll call him back over the left and then finally sub him off. And it's like, well, he's just shown you what he can do when you put him in a position where he just feels comfortable and he's good at. And I just think Southgate lacks that ruthlessness to say, do you know what? You are what? My third greatest player that I've got in the squad, but unfortunately, the way I want to play, you don't fit into it, so you're going to have to be on the bench. He just lacks that ability to tell them that, I think.
Yeah, but again, Sven-Göran Eriksson did this with Lampard and Gerrard.
It's not a defence, though.
More than Sven, actually. McLaren, Capello.
It's not a defensive Southgate. That's a really weak.
No, but what I would say is, do you not think the players have to take some kind of responsibility, or do you think that the tactical or the system that England play is to a detriment? Because, for instance, Declan Rice was great against Serbia. Against Denmark, I thought he was absolutely appalling. And the worst performance I've ever seen. Couldn't even string a pass together. Was absolutely woeful, like scarily woeful. Probably the worst player on the pitch. But Rice, you could argue, all right, there was a bit of tinkering with Arteta towards the end of the season where Arteta would stick in Jorginho and free up Rice a little bit more. But Rice isn't really playing that much out of position, is he? Really? You certainly wouldn't, if you were in charge of England yourself, would you really be pushing Declan Rice up further up the park? I'm not so sure. You'd be quite comfortable with him, what he's doing next, sat in front of the back four. I don't know. There was a lot of individual errors against Denmark. I don't think the pitch helped either.
The pitch was awful.
Yeah, just quite surprising that was. Yeah. There's a lot for Southgate to look at. I'll be amazed if there's not changes made for the Slovenia game on Tuesday. So,
do you think they relied too much on Harry Kane? And again, Southgate
not playing. Not the way they're playing at the moment, because Kane isn't. Look, for us who have never played the game to any sort of level, I just bow down to the wisdom of people that have. And, two of the greatest England strikers in modern times, Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer, both say that Kane isn't doing enough. Rumours is he's carrying a knock because he's not running. He's ambling around and he's coming way too deep. He's not playing like a number 9. He's playing like Wayne Rooney used to and eventually that led him to drop into midfield. I don't know. I kind of think that maybe he should have took a chance on Callum Wilson, but it's that Newcastle bias shining through again, isn't it? Because
definitely should not have taken a chance on Callum Wilson. Not at all. They should have taken Dominic Solanke. But I think the point about Harry Kane, and it goes back to what Alan Shearer said yesterday afterwards when he mentioned the fact, he lost a yard of pace. So club football, he had to rely on pacey wingers, Bellamy. Why is it like we can all see that? Alan Shearer can see that. Why isn't Gareth Southgate looking at and thinking, yeah, Kane hasn't got that pace anymore. Still fantastic when you get the ball into in the 6-yard box, as we saw yesterday with the
No one better.
So why don't I put a pacey winger on the left, or why don't I bring someone closer to him that can offer that pace, that can create that space, that can just allow him to coast and then turn on when he's needed, and then he wouldn't have this criticism of the lack of running and what have you. Why can't Gareth Southgate see it? Because that goes back to my original question about relying too heavily on Harry Kane. Is Southgate seeing something we're not? Is he just pinning his hopes on him? Why hasn't he got that tactical awareness where he can play someone or change a system to benefit the greatest goal scorer in a generation?
It's $1 million question, I suppose, isn't it? I don't know, but for me, it should be a 4-2-3-1, and Foden in the 10 where he can come deeper and pick up the ball and run with it. So that will allow Kane to just play the width of the 18-yard box, like Sir Bobby got Alan Shearer to do all them years ago. And then you have Gordon and Saka on the wings doing the running, staying wide, giving the team some width. It was all too narrow and formulaic and congested. It is incredibly frustrating. But if they go back and put on a performance against Slovenia on Tuesday, I suppose all is forgiven. And it's that old adage of it's tournament football. It is about doing enough and progressing into the next round.
No, I agree with you on that, and that's what people would be saying. It's just about getting through to the knockout stages and playing well when it really matters. But you can't help but feel thoroughly unenthused after that game against Denmark. Sam, what item are you bringing to the table this week?
PGMOL.
Oh, hello.
I have always been a fan of VAR and technology in football, and I have maintained, go back and listen to podcasts of previous year or whatever, that it is the human aspect behind it of where it's going wrong. And I think this tournament, the Euros are proving that. We're getting it so wrong in this country, and that stems from the PGMOL, Howard Webb, and the guys in charge of VAR in this country. VAR has been fantastic in the Euros so far. Absolutely superb. Quick, decisive, doesn't really interfere with the flow of the game. It's just everything that VAR was kind of promised it would be in the end. There's been no kind of discrepancy where we'd come to an end of a game and think, right, we'd make the points that we'd want to previously, where we'd like to see the referees have a stadium mic and announce their decision to the stadium. Don't need it. It just shows all we'd need is strong leadership at the start and people using the technology supplied in the correct manner and in an efficient manner, which is what is happening in the Euros so far. It's not put a step wrong. It's been absolutely superb. And it just goes to show the difference in this country is not the technology. It's the 15 stone of flesh and bones that are clicking the buttons. It's the PGMOL for me, and that needs to be disbanded, dismissed, and we need to throw it in the bin and start again.
So do you think the difference is just the personnel behind it?
The training given, how to put it politely.
Try.
I will and am. I'll put it another way to make it polite. Like, if the guys at the top don't know what they're doing, then how do the people at the coalface? How are they supposed to know what to do? It's obviously the training that they are the training that they have been given or are continually given isn't fit for purpose. Howard Webb can do as many stage TV shows with Michael Owen, who is in the bin, so they'll get along well in there. Michael Owen's already in the bin, so him and Howard Webb could do their own shows from the bin. It just doesn't make it any difference. He can hold his hands up and say, "Oh yeah, we got that one wrong. Oh yeah, good process, lads." Too much time spent on it. It should be quick, decisive, and this has been a real eye opener. Actually, the Euros when it comes to VAR, because it has been superb. In fact, the one game that it was kind of who was in charge, the UK officials. But there you go. Yeah, it needs systemic change. The PGMOL, it's not fit for purpose at the moment.
I also guess as well, you've got the standard of refereeing is the best it could be as well. Those referees on the pitch are at the very top of their game as well. So that makes a huge difference. We've also had semi-automated offside technology being used, and this will come into play from the 24-25 season in the Premier League as well. Have you been impressed by that?
Massively.
So it's got 10 specialized cameras, including 29 body points tracked for every player. So it's very, very complicated by the sounds of it. The system works together with the connected ball technology to identify the first point of contact with the ball from the player who makes the pass during offside situations. Already in use for the Champions League and in Serie A as well. But you've been impressed by it and looking forward to seeing it in the new season?
Yes. I'm sure the PGMOL kind of dismissed it to start with as well, because I'm sure it should have come into force from last season, but they kind of pushed back on it. It's been fantastic. It's been faultless so far. And the speed of which it gets the decisions right does nothing to impact the flow of the game. You're not standing around for minutes on end. It worked. Nothing is perfect, I suppose, but it's as close as. It's certainly the best version of technology aligned with the goalmouth technology. It's what was kind of what we were led to be promised that we were getting, if you see what I mean, when it was first introduced. Yeah, I think it's been absolutely fantastic.
Good to hear. I mean, so you're wanting, I guess, the standard of those using it over in England to be put in the bin. I mean, what's the solution then? Is it better training? Is it? I mean, should Howard Webb be knocking on the door and saying, we want to send 3 or 4 of our lads over just to kind of shadow you and see how to do it correctly?
Yeah, but I think there's a proudness element of it, and it's always been quite a even back in the day with Mike Riley. And I've had Mark Clattenburg in the past on my own podcast, the Greenwood and Mullen Show on Newcastle Fans TV. For those who are asking, quite a snobbish organisation, more aligned with a sort of dictatorship than democracy, I suppose. Whilst we're in election season. I think it may be that kind of too proud to kind of take influence from others, and really get a grip of the systems that they're using, because I don't understand how they can get it so wrong so often. It just goes to show things aren't working, and that I'm sorry comes from the top down, not down up. So it's the leadership that's the issue. There are some very, very good and capable referees in the UK, but they're being made to look very, very stupid, and they are making mistakes too often. And it just needs to get in the bin.
Well, fingers crossed. The people who are or will be using it next season will be looking and learning from everything that's gone so far in the Euros, and it's gone correctly, and they can bring that into the Premier League, because we can't have another season like we did last season where just time and time again the wrong decisions were being made because it's just not good enough. So hopefully they can take every piece of advice possible from those using it correctly during this tournament. I just want to bring you back to the last episode we did, episode 16, Sam, where I brought to the item the suggestion of relocating Leazes Terrace. You brought to the table the beer ban on football, or the beer ban in football stadiums. And I won this vote quite comfortably in the end. 67% to 33%, 412 votes. Thanks to Toon Pools for reposting it. What happened there? Because I thought you were confident of winning that.
Yeah, I think if I'd have done it this week when the Euros were in full flow, and you could see England fans behaving, all the trouble hasn't really involved England fans at all, has it? It's been other kind of nations. But I digress. Beers in the stadiums in Germany, and this was my major point, that having my own experience watching football in Germany, and it wasn't a case of people getting paralytically drunk and encouraging loutish behaviour and whatnot. That wasn't what I was doing. I was just saying, giving the people a chance to behave like adults.
Yeah,
Germany have it spot on. And that was my argument. I think or people didn't watch the programme, just saw it and then just clicked. I think that's the problem with Twitter. It's just too easy. They just saw two statements and just went without hearing me out.
No, they all listened and watched it. I'm fully confident of that. I don't know what to do here, because I agree with your item. We need to see VAR improved. As I said, we can't have another season like we did last season. The standards are just woefully shocking. But I also feel very, very, I'm not even frustrated, England. I'm just, my apathy for it has been reaffirmed because of that performance. And my full belief is that even when they get through the knockout stages, which they will do, they'll I don't think they'll make it as far as the semis. I think as soon as they come up against a decent side, like a top class side, they'll get knocked out. So I agree with your point, but also I feel very passionately about my point.
Yeah,
where you standing?
I think we both feel the same, to be honest, on both points. I think, though, which might just sway it, I think your issue is going to be resolved in a couple of weeks anyway. I think
He's going to
Southgate.
be out on his ear.
Yeah, I think so. I'd be surprised if it were he to stay. Whereas the PGMOL is very much here to stay, and there's nothing that can really be done about that. Whether this independent regulatory body can ever be started, and whether they would have jurisdiction over something like the PGMOL, I'm not so sure. But yeah, I think Southgate's gone after this tournament anyway, so maybe that swings things into my direction.
Or we could just not even bother running a poll and we just say a point apiece here because both.
I mean, I've won the series anyway, so I don't really mind.
Fair enough. Well, I'll take the point then anyway.
No, I've lied. Actually, I do care. Every week is a battle. I would feel hard done by were I not to come out of this empty-handed, because as I say, your point is pretty much going to resolve itself over the course of the.
Well, I'll be intrigued to know in the comments because I think there will be some support still for Southgate. So if you're listening, if you're watching on YouTube, let us know in the comments. If you're on social media listening to the podcast, get in touch with me and Sam over Twitter if you'd like to. This has been episode 17 of Getting the Bin. I'm going to call it a draw, point apiece. It's been thoroughly enjoyable though, and I'm off on my holidays, so it's a nice way to see the week out. We are going to record episode 18 ahead of time, which will come on Tuesday while I'm sitting around the pool enjoying a non-alcoholic beverage.
Where are you going? In Spain?
Yes, off to jolly Spain.
Whereabouts in Spain? Ibiza.
But yes, I'm going to go partying with my 1-year-old. No, off to Mallorca for a few days.
Is it Mallorca or Majorca? No,
Mallorca,
isn't it?
Spain.
Yeah, it's Spain. Right. Enjoy.
Yes, thank you. And guys, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you soon.